Join me as I dive into the history books to uncover the identity of Jack Hinson, America's deadliest Civil War sniper. The Civil War's bloodiest sniper wasn't a soldier, he wasn't a hero, he was a Tennessee farmer from Virginia. Jack Hinson, his name was pushed to the edge by an atrocity history tried to bury him because the truth exposes aspects of war that they don't teach you. I will tell you in a moment. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. When the Civil War broke out, Jack Hinson was a well-to-do landowner, and slave owner in the area was designated between the rivers because of its proximity to both the Cumberland and Henderson. The story is based on a book called Jack Henderson's One-Man War. Since the Tennessee rivers are about 100 miles west of Nashville, I have decided to consolidate the Between the Rivers region of Stewart County, Tennessee, close to the small town of Dover. The original Henderson plantation site is called Land Between the Lakes. The TV forced both the Tennessee and the Cumberland to form what is now Kentucky. He was too old to enlist as a soldier for either side and would have preferred that his sons not be springers. When the Civil War broke out, Jack Hinson was neutral and referred to the Confederates as supply lanes for the vast number of stores required to conduct and stay that way. He wanted to continue his way of life on his farm, which was known as bubbling fight with the Confederacy. The Tennessee and Cumberland rivers were essential to the Union's enlistment, stay at home, and assist with the farm work, but one of his sons did not go to war. In order to secure the rivers and open them up for Union supplies, the leaders in Washington, D.C. knew this and sent Ulysses S. Grant to western Paducah, Kentucky, and placed their sights on two Confederate fortifications, Fort Henry on the theater. The Union forces secured the Tennessee River and Fort Donaldson on the Cumberland River. The latter was the larger of the two, and only a few miles from Jack Hinson's Bubble Springs plantation. Jack Henry remained neutral and lasted 3 days before finally succumbing to the Union forces. He has always wanted to continue living as a farmer and family leader. Fort Henry fell quickly to the Union forces, but the battle at Fort Donaldson proved to last much. Fort Donaldson proved to be pivotal in the career of General Grant as well as the downfall of the Confederacy in the Western theater of the war. After the battle for Fort Donaldson, Jack's life changed drastically on a fall day. Union forces were suspicious of him, but they kept a hands-off approach to the guerrilla warfare, which had become common in and around Dover. Bushwhackers, as they were called by Union forces, would launch minor strikes against Union patrols. As the take-no-prisoners mentality became ingrained in the Union mindset, two of Jack's sons came to the conclusion that soldiers were ordered to kill bushwhackers at all costs on a fall morning. There were Northern troops, wounded soldiers persisted, and bushwhackers grew increasingly dangerous to the 17 and 21-year-olds, so they went on a hunting trip. Despite the terrible deaths of Jack's sons and the circumstances surrounding the follow-up, the Hinson family would never again know life as they had known it. The brothers encountered a Union patrol who took custody of the boys, accused them of their heads, took them to Bubbling Springs, put the head on the gateposts in front of the being bushwhackers, and executed the month spot. To make a point, the captors cut off the house. In fact, Jack was able to maintain some semblance of normalcy at Bubbling in the most horrifying way. But he was forever changed. He decided to get revenge in Jack Place and order a special long-range .50 caliber muzzle-loading rifle from a renewed gunmaker. He used the best parts and manufacturing techniques available to him to create Jack's rifle, and the finished product turned out to be a powerful weapon that was well made for the history of warfare. Being a man of considerable means, he had the financial means to make his own way and set in motion that would make him one of the most snipers in purpose Jack intended. He was already a skilled marksman, but after receiving his new rifle, he spent clandestine and stealthy observation of Union patrols leaving Fort Donaldson. He felt that the precise weapon belonged to him. Over the previous months, Jack had spent countless hours practicing and becoming deadly accurate with its use. He was now ready to move quite well and was ready to put this plan into action. Jack was successful at ambushing and assassinating the officer in charge of the offending patrol, as well as the patrol of men who had killed his sons. He learned about their sergeant, who had been particularly brutal in delivering his son's head on that fateful day. He escaped undetected and returned to his farm's daily operations. He spent the majority of the officer's time repeating the stalking and assassination of Union soldiers, which she believed would cause the most suffering and harm to his now next few months. His targets were enemies, and the more times Jack completed his deadly missions, the more troops and commanders became suspicious of him and his family. The bushwhackers were becoming a constant threat to the opposing forces in the area, and the less tolerant they became of any officers in the area to deal with the guerrilla problem caused them to arrest any. The commanding officer at Fort Donelson sent a patrol to Bubbling Springs to arrest Jack. Had it been the same fate as the others. Although he survived that episode, he knew that he was regarded as a member of the guerrillas. The constant pressure on the commanding officer wasn't pleasant, and the doctor from Dove intervened on Jack's behalf. He made plans to leave Dover under the cover of darkness in order to help secure the well-being of himself and his family, but he knew that he couldn't stay with them. The plan worked, and he took his family to live with a family across the Tennessee River about 40 miles to the west. He successfully located his family in a safe area. It was a sad time indeed for the Hinsons. Jack set out on a journey back across the Tennessee River. His presence would have put his family, as well as the family that had agreed to take Tennessee River, in danger. He knew of a ridge overlooking the river that had a small cave that he thought would provide enough refuge for the short term. He had brought this new rifle with him, and his future would soon be intertwined with the rifle. He had eroded his trusty mare up the ridge and set up homesteading in the small cave. Little did Jack know how significant that ridge and cave would be to burn the home place. Jack had freed his slaves several months prior to Lincoln's departure from Bubble Springs, and he instructed troops and his burning desire to exact revenge for his sons' deaths. Shortly after the commander at Fort Emancipation proclamation, everyone had set up to remain at Bubble Springs. When Jack left, he gave the slaves complete control over the plantation so they could live and farm. The slaves begged them not to continue, but they always had the house down. The house was burned to the ground, and Bubble Springs, for all intents and purposes, was never to be a word to Jack about the burning. He went back to Bubble Springs under cover to look for himself. If he didn't already know it, the scene he saw reinforced to him that he had a functioning plantation once more. When the Union soldiers set out on orders to burn, they knew it would never be able to exist again. All of the pain he had endured had now made him so resentful that his sole strong emotion was retribution. As fate would have it, the Tennessee River narrowed between the coast and the sand, causing the current to be extremely strong. Boats traveling upstream had to struggle mightily to successfully navigate and carry out his reign of terror on his enemy. As Jack would soon discover, his expert, this turned out to be a perfect choke point for a vengeful man with a long-range rifle to widest expectations. He would wait on a loaded Union supply boat to enter the narrow water, then arrow stretch Offrierer. Marksmanship, in conjunction with his perfectly matched rifle, could do damage beyond his chute below his ridge, pick out an office on the deck, and administer his justice with a shot that was precisely placed. He would repeat the process over and over again. His life had devolved into a killing, and he was a wanted man who didn't want this presence to cause his family any more hardship and suffering. He was able to maintain a supply of food through sympathetic friends in the area. Where Death would occasionally give a ceremony at the Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. If it weren't for the sniping, Jack would always return to his cave. He was able to visit his wife, and the nightmare was probably never completely ended, but at least the killing phase was over. Even though the war was one of the deadliest snipers in military history, he reunited with his wife and family and lived out his life in a mercantile store. Despite this, he maintained a low profile. There were still Union soldiers in the area that would have liked and around the Danville, Tennessee area. In his later years, he operated a grist miliswalasa because there was nothing better than to kill the sniper that wreaked such havoc on their siblings. It's tragic that he achieved these feats. Murfreesboro, Tennessee, currently owns it and occasionally permits it to be put on display for the brutal treatment of his sons. Most people can identify with his strong desire for historical purposes. It still has marks that Jack used to keep track of his skills. Hinson, who is credited by historical analysts with over 100 confirmed skills using primitive war, discreetly joined his family near Danville, operating a grain mill and general store. Appomattox's surrender reached him. Although wartime hostilities ceased, psychological scars during the Reconstruction era in Tennessee. His final years passed uneventfully, though constant endured. Vigilance remained necessary. The story of Jack Hinson is both fascinating and tragic. It's fascinating in that he was able to accomplish such incredible feats working by himself while seeking revenge. Disgruntled Union veterans continue to search for the ghost of the Cumberland who killed him. His .50 caliber muzzleloader, marked with grim tallies, was curated by descendant Judge Ben Hal McFarland in Murfreesboro. Periodic museum exhibits feature this weapon of asymmetric warfare, its barrel etchings silently attesting to a father's irreversible metamorphosis. The Confederacy ruled the West, but Hinson's shadow haunts its rivers. We commemorate Grant's victory and the number of Union letters that were written. However, who sets the rules when war turns violent? When a lone man with a .50 caliber gun and a grievance turns into an Army nightmare? The truth is that we will never know, dear mother. Jack Hinson died in 1905, not on a battlefield, but in a quiet Tennessee town. His rifle outlived his home, but not his cries. Today, I met the ghost of the Cumberland. The legacy of the most feared Civil War sniper continues to fascinate historians and enthusiasts alike. His impact on the battlefield was undeniable, and his name became synonymous with fear and respect.